Alright, and welcome back everybody to yet another tier list video. The summer 2023 season for anime has roughly ended. There's a few seasons of anime that have not finished yet, but I just figured we might as well do the tier list as we've done with the previous season. We're going to be doing the top 10 list as the title suggests, with a few honorable mentions which will start the video off first, and then we'll go with the list. If you are new to the channel and this is your first video of this top 10 list, we're going to be generally ranking the characters that are exclusive to this anime season, or we can also include existing characters from previous seasons, from sequels, if they are a core factor to this season. So for example, a character like Gojo, who had a past Gojo arc with the Star Plasma, as well as Geto, those count. But if I'm using another season, for example, Mami from Rent a Girlfriend wouldn't count because she hasn't really done much in Rent a Girlfriend season 3. But yeah, that's basically the idea of this kind of video series that I have for the end of every season. So we will be discussing the characters that we rank and why I have them there, and discussions may vary with each character, as of course not every character is written to be this big discussion character, as some of them are just kind of fun to watch, or kind of delivering a simple thing, but it just can work so well that you just like them a lot. But yeah, so we're going to be starting off with our first character in the honorable mentions. I'm going to be putting Yayoi Hozuki from Dark Gathering. I actually do want to make a video on this anime at one point, probably when the anime ends, or I don't know, when I read the manga for it. But Yayoi is actually a pretty interesting character in the sense of you kind of get this false hope of trusting her at the beginning of the series, but every time you are reminded that she's this deluded and very fucked up girl with how she treats the supernaturals and kind of possessing or kidnapping all these curses because she wants to use them to make an army to fight against that one curse or spirit that took her mother away from her, which is obviously makes sense. She wants to get her parents back, but it's just that you just don't want to get on her bad side, because we've obviously seen of how she interacts and acts against these other curses and what she's willing to do, as we've seen, for example, with the spirit that they had to deal with the elevator brainstem one, and how his fate ended up being. And it is very interesting, as we'll get to see as the time we get this video, we're at the kind of point where even Yayoi is struggling against some of these different kind of supernatural stories, as we've seen with the waterfall one, and they are finding the one that's the one spirit that's kind of gonna marry Kamiya, or with the blonde girl. But yeah, definitely very interesting. I do like her interactions with Keitaro as well, as they do have a pretty nice kind of partner duo bond. And I will be catching and seeing the show as it goes on, and probably will make a full video talking about how the series is overall. But that's gonna be my take on Yayoi. Next up, I'm actually gonna be putting a JJK character again, but you get the idea. But it's gonna be Riko Amanai. Okay, next up in the list, we're gonna be putting Riko Amanai from JJK. She's not really a big character to discuss, but I just think she's a fun character to watch. She's just a normal girl in the world of JJK, and she's been kind of put into this position as having to fuse with Tengen to continue the lifespan of the Star Plasma vessel in order to keep him alive, and then keep the balance or the order or whatever it was. And it is very fun to see how Geto and Gojo kind of grow attached to her, and they are actually willing to try to give her the opportunity to just ditch this whole thing, because she's kind of just a normal teenage high school girl, and she's been trying to live her life up to this point after the knowledge of what she has to do. To just prolong, I guess, the inevitable, because she'll end up having the fuse, and basically that's just the end of her life in a way. But then you see the tragic end, as in we know in JJK, where no one's really safe, so her fate does meet the unfortunate end, which I do actually think is an interesting way to end her character, because it's just this tragic tale, which it does add a lot to the whole narrative overall of Star Plasma, which I'll get into, because I'm probably gonna be making a video on a specific thing on JJK, because her death affects Gojo and Geto, and then it also does establish Toji as this very unhinged and kind of does not care about anything, and gets the job done, and it does set him off as just a amazing antagonist for Star Plasma. But that's not really about Amanai herself. It's just, Amanai herself is pretty fun to watch. That's kind of the gist of it here. The next one is probably going to be an interesting ranking here, but I'm actually going to be putting Rent-A-Girlfriend's Yaimori from this season. And I'm not really a fan of this season's Rent-A-Girlfriend, even the one before that. There's a lot of stalemate, nothing really happening, stagnation. Kazuya's still the same thing he is. Season 1 was good. I did actually think maybe we could get the direction of maybe Kazuya changing to be a better person or having some kind of development, but obviously as this is Rent-A-Girlfriend, that is non-existent here. Same thing with Chizuru, though I guess the movie arc was kind of a decent, thing for Chizuru's arc. I did like some parts of it, and especially the scene with her mother or grandmother passing away. That was actually a pretty good scene for kind of just adding more character to both Chizuru and Kazuya, but aside from that, just a lot of kind of just stalling just for the sake of, I guess, getting a big quick buck from, the author. But I do think that Yaimori does carry the season because she's this interesting jester, as you may, for the series. It's kind of weird to describe her as that because she just sees this whole spectacle and this whole story in front of her with all these Rent-A-Girlfriends and Kazuya and Ruka and Mami and Chizuru has all this kind of story in an anime because Yaimori herself, she is involved a lot in the otaku culture and she's like a VTuber herself. So she gets this kind of thing, and so when she sees that, she is very enthralled and wants to look and watch as a kind of an audience. So she will be stealing a lot of shit and trying to, tell Kazuya maybe Chizuru has feelings for him and vice versa, trying to set up certain things. For example, when they were filming the movie, she ditches but pretends he was going to be there just to get them to have some moments together. She's just a lot of fun, and I think she does kind of bring the show up, even if, the season has a lot of flaws, as, per from the last season, the flaws are still there. But yeah, Mori does carry a lot. And she overall is just fun to watch. Just, if you watch it, you probably can see, what we mean here. But yeah, very cool character overall. But next up, we'll actually be talking about a Zombie Hunter character, Kenshan. Kenshan is a very funny character, honestly. He does play the comedian part very well, as he always wanted to be. And I do actually really like his episode, as we see kind of this establishing a kind of contrast or theme with him, and Akira, and then later on Shizuku is seeing that all of them are kind of tied to this certain ideal put on others, or the society that puts on Akira with the work and how he becomes a kind of a company slave. And then you have Kenshan, who kind of was doing a lot of shady contracts and putting people on a lot of bad situations, but he tries to act and boast as though nothing's wrong, or he's not empty, or he's happy about it, but in reality he is very guilty and just has been leading an awful life up to this point. But as we see in that episode, as how he decides to pursue his dreams of being a comedian, and it is honestly very fun and just great to watch, just seeing him kind of embrace himself and just be the person he wants to be. As you see, that man, he does not play any games. He would fucking just run around naked against one of these zombies without having any shame. You just gotta love Kenshan. Kenshan's just the best friend for fucking Akira. But yeah, he's in the honorable mentions. He's awesome. And the last character for our honorable mention is gonna be Aya from Murder Force. Under Murder Force is actually, an amazing show from this season with a lot of kind of interesting little, mysteries and kind of different type of things when it comes to the world. You have a lot of these characters that we've had, for example, Lupin, we had Frankenstein, and all these kind of different characters, and just trying to find the body when it comes to Aya. And Aya herself is very entertaining, especially with her interactions with the main trio, just seeing her deduction and how she comes up with, the conclusions of the certain cases that she has to overcome. But yeah, she is honestly very cool to watch. There's not really a lot for me to say about her in terms of character, but there is a lot of theories and discussion to go when it comes to just what she is overall, being the whole immortality thing, and just her capabilities as just having what she can do. And there's a lot with that, and what happened, before, and how she lost her body. We do know how she lost it, but what about the things before that? There's stuff you can ask and kind of discuss, and maybe a season 2 could actually solve and answer a lot of these questions. So now we start with the first 10 of our list. So we're gonna put Shizuka Miyazuki from Zone 100. Yet again, this list is probably gonna be a lot of top heavy characters. So Shizuka is actually just kind of the same thing I said about Kenshan. I do like the contrast that she has with the group. It's kind of the theme of seeing that she's this kind of calm, collected girl, and she lives to survive rather than live to enjoy life, as we see the contrast between her and Akira, because Akira himself, he is living his life right now as wanting to do things before he becomes a zombie or dies, and he's willing to risk his life just to accomplish and do these kind of things, whereas Shizuka's just kind of wanting to live. She looks at things objectively or analyzes things whether or not they're beneficial or not. And we do see that there's this really good episode with Akira where he becomes kind of the work slave again, with the thing of, despite him moving on from the whole work slave and company slave thing, he never technically really moved on from it, because he kind of just lost it one day. So when you get roped back into it and the boss comes back to manipulate him, obviously he's not really going to have a opportunity to act strong or be able to overcome it. So Shizuka does play that role, and especially when we know that Shizuka does have a similar kind of situation with her father, where her father would have a lot of expectations put on her and not allow her to do certain things because she's the daughter of a very wealthy company, or a father, the daughter of whatever, yeah, get what I mean. But yeah, and I do really like just her overall, and you should see her development, because back then she was very against Akira and his way of living, but now she's starting to gradually understand. We see that one scene where she suggests that maybe jobs can just be for anybody, like he could be a YouTuber, he could just do a lot of different things. I really do like that. It encapsulates just her development really well. And yeah, that's gonna be where my take on Shizuka. So next up, some of you might not say this is an anime, but honestly, I don't really care. I'm gonna consider it in here, and it's just a really good show overall. I'm gonna be talking about the Link Click second season, Tianchen Li. So this is a character that I want to say that I've been looking forward to for 2 years, but it's not really Tianchen Li himself, but more so the red eyes and the ability that we saw in the first season. Tianchen Li is still an amazing character. That's the reason why he's in this list. But it's just that the last season and like what we saw in the finale, that's been rent-free in my head until this season came out. Because just seeing this kind of character or antagonist be the complete antithesis and contrast to Chen Zhaoxi and his power, where this character seemingly was using his powers to control people in the past, and instead of fixing certain things or figuring out, he's tampering with stuff. He got Emma to commit suicide, push her off the the building or whatever it was. And he caused a lot of other things to with Lu Min. He used his body, and we just get to see a lot of like very big cliffhangers at the last season, where Lu Guang got stabbed by this entity or whatever it is, and we just end up seeing this the whole upbringing and situation of Tianchen Li and why this whole thing happened. And you see that in a way that they're kind of a different version of Chen Zhaoxi, with him and his sister, as opposed to Chen Zhaoxi and Lu Guang. And I don't want to really go too much on a tangent here, but like that one last episode of this season, very good stuff, and you just want to see that these guys are, it's very hard to pronounce his name, but Tianchen Li, he doesn't want to go back to the past using Chen Zhaoxi's power to just change how things were with, the abusive family that they were in, and how it ended up getting his mom and dad killed. So he's definitely a very interesting character, and he definitely did deliver with what I was anticipating for the last 2 years. But yeah, we're gonna be putting him in number 9. So number 8 will be a character that's not really, I guess, much to discuss about, but it's just mainly like he's a fun character to watch, and he's just kind of just entertaining. Like there's not really a lot to say in that regard. But I'm gonna be putting Abel in number 8. Shoutouts to Lance if you're watching this video. It's one of his favorite shows this season, and yeah, he is very fun to watch. Abel is just kind of this nonchalant, goofy character in the series of Saint Cecilia, and you can see that he definitely does care about Hazelita and Lauren, and he's obviously kind of being this wingman character to Lauren and Cecilia, trying to get them both together, because he knows, everybody knows that Cecilia is into Lauren, but Lauren's just this extremely dense guy, and so Abel's kind of just there to kind of try to make the hints more obvious. And as we see in how he interacts with Hazelita, I just really love just seeing the energy and interactions he has with the group. But yeah, I'll just put him in number 8. He's definitely a very good character, and I do think he's worthy of my top 10 list of the season. Alright, so next up in the list, we'll actually be talking about, well, if you've seen, Kanchan's here, Shizuka's here, obviously Akira's gonna be here as well at number 7. Akira, I mean, already I've talked about him in, the discussion I put in the placements of Kenshan and Shizuka. Akira is just a very fun, positive character to see. I just love his interactions he has with the other characters in the series. And, I mean, I've already talked about him already from the other fucking characters, but yeah, like, he's just overall fun to watch. Just his positive energy, his attitude, his interactions, and personality. And just honestly, he has a great character arc as we see him kind of finally decide to live his own life to the fullest and actually be able to move on from the workforce that he was put under and actually just be able to stand up to his boss and even be willing to help him so that he can actually finally move on completely from that guy. And yeah, that's my take on Akira. I mean, I've already mentioned it to the other one, so that's a thumbs up for my book. But yeah, alright, so the next character in the list, as we have Yayoi in this list, we will also be talking about Eiko. She's honestly the most interesting character in the show. Dark Gathering's biggest interesting thing about it is the world and the whole kind of horror aspect to it, but I do think that doesn't mean that the characters in it aren't compelling or there's something to talk about with them, and I think Eiko is the biggest example of that. See, Eiko is just what I said about Yayoi, it's much different with Eiko. With Eiko, you just absolutely don't know what she's thinking, because as we see the first few episodes establish, this childhood friend that has this bubbly, fun, positive energy character, and this extroverted character that, kind of drags Kitaro to all these, weird, supernatural hijinks they have every day. But then you realize that she's a little bit crazy and, she's obsessive to a core, and we get to see that she, claims that Keitaro is only really, bringing himself in this purposely because he's in love with the idea of horror and being, scared and terrified. And we still haven't really gotten back to that, and I'm actually interested to see if maybe we'll get some more insight on that, because it's definitely not the end of it. There's definitely not the end of it, because that kind of got mentioned, and if it is never mentioned again, I mean, so be it. But I'm definitely interested to see where that goes, because Eiko is basically, this big yandere character that, tracks, sees where Keitaro's always there, where he is, and you see that all these other, instances in which she does, you can't really trust her, and you really are just expecting, the worst when she's around, because, when you see the room and what amount of pictures she has of Keitaro, and just her being obsessed with the idea that Keitaro saves her from the supernatural, what she's both addicted to, it's just very fascinating, because that could be why, maybe in a way that is what Keitaro is into, but we just don't know that yet. There's a possibility that Keitaro is also addicted to the supernaturals, but he just doesn't know that yet. So we'll see where that goes, because I know that he claimed that he's been involving himself to kind of be able to face against these supernaturals instead of trying to run away from them, but who knows, I might be theorizing on nothing and it might be all completely wrong, but hey, I'll take the blame and I'll just shut up if that's all completely wrong. Anyways, but yeah, Eiko is a very great character for this series. Next up will be Hyunjin. So Hyunjin is the primary antagonist of the second season of Linklet, and basically his whole thing is being the whole obsession with betrayal and how he, lost his wife, or specifically murdered his own wife because he suspected her of sleeping or having an affair with a colleague from the acting industry. And we know it's been implied that it's not actually been the case, because he's been teaming up with the twins, Tianchen Li and his sister, just to try to be able to get the goal of using Shin Jiaoxi's power to undo the past so that all these issues wouldn't happen, is what he would believe. And I actually do really find him to be an interesting character, because he has this antagonistic aura to him, and you just see it from the design and all these setups and just everything in general. And it's kind of this interesting kind of theme of just betrayal versus trust as the group, and they all have this trust with one another, whereas this guy kind of just he's very doubtful and paranoid, and just resorted to murder because he just assumed that his wife was not loyal, and that just happened. But yeah, he's I don't have the biggest amount to say, because I haven't really, this is just a unscripted video. I have to just mention that. I don't know if I mentioned that at the beginning, but this video is completely unscripted, so everything I'm saying here is just completely from my head. It's not from any script or whatever. But yeah, he's definitely worthy of the top 5. And now we're getting in the top 4. So The number 4 spot, I mean, if we have Aya here and you see from this whole list, I mean, it's definitely obvious that Sugaru is going to be in the number 4 spot. Sugaru is an interesting character just in the sense of that he's just charismatic, nonchalant. I guess you want to say, I don't know if I want to say anti-hero, but kind of just like this morally gray character, because honestly, no, not morally gray. All of them are kind of like antagonists in a way. Where like Sugaru is this guy that he's kind of had this disease, and he's gonna be inevitably become an Oni at that one point because he was working for that show or act, and he just kind of accepted it. He just was just waiting for the day where he would just eventually go berserk and lose control and just kill all the people that are watching, because all the people are scumbags. They're just there to ridicule him or watch him just get suffer all this shit. So he might as well just go out with a bang before he dies and just kills them all. And that was just such an interesting establishment of his character from the first episode, as just kind of just you get the idea of what he's like, and man, oh man, is he just an interesting character from the rest of the series, as his interactions and kind of the banter he has with Aya and Shizuku, and we just see like how powerful he is, or just the way he is in general, and his personality just fun to watch. It's like it was just a blast to watch, just him and like overall the world of Undead Murder Farce for like the 3 months of the the whole season. I do hope that we get a season 2 to hit this. Alright, so top 3 list right here is going to be it's gonna be a little funny one right here. Alright, so let's talk about Toji, the 3rd highest in this list. So once again, I don't want to go too much on a tangent because again, I'm making a JJK video at some point. I don't want to spoil what it is specifically, but just because actually, because I want to talk about everything as a scope, and I'm just gonna like spoil it for you guys. But top 3 is just Gojo's in the top 2, and then the first one is Geto. So I'll explain why I already just put them right away. It's because I have always been a fan of Hidden Inventory arc all the way since I've read the manga. So just watching it animated, it brought back the just the excitement and just kind of my appreciation of the whole arc in general. And I can also make a whole video on it in its entirety, because just like the arc itself made me enjoy Gojo like to an insane degree. Because before that, I actually really liked him. He was fun, but nothing really as a favorite of all time character. But this arc is what cemented him to me as one of my favorite all time characters. Just seeing his dynamic with Geto and just how he, the interesting developments that the kind of shift, the inverse, I guess, shift you want to call it, that Gojo undergoes compared to Geto, and just kind of the way they were at the start. And not to mention Gojo's like kind of dynamic with Toji, despite them not really interacting, as even if they uttered like a few lines to each other. But there's like a very, very interesting kind of dynamic with one another, as Gojo kind of sees himself as the top of the world, and basically he is, and how strong he is, which gives him this kind of big ego to him, and Toji being the bottom of the barrel, the worst with no cursed energy, exiled from all these family, from the Zenin clan, and him just wanting to prove his existence by defeating the strongest, while Gojo is stuck in this kind of title of being the strongest. So if he's lost it, then is he really Gojo Satoru, as Geto describes it? And there's a lot of things that are just interesting from these like 4 or 5 episodes of that arc, because as we see that Geto being this kind of character that's representing the standard Jujutsu sorcerer and what they should stand to be, protecting the weak, and that's the reason why they have all the strength. But Geto, as we know it, ends up changing from that belief as he sees the reality of the world and how they betrayed him and how they act towards the death of a normal girl, and they celebrate it. And just the fact that even despite those thoughts, even despite all that, he still stood to his ideals and told Gojo not to kill all of them, because if that happened, we probably would have had a completely different series. And it's very ironic because Geto's the one that ends up changing for the worst, as he ends up deciding to go to the route of destroying and killing every non-sorcerer so that all these type of things never happen again. But it's also kind of another interesting layer to this character, because it's not just him killing everybody, he's killing everybody, but he's also treating all the Jujutsu sorcerers with respect and actually looking at them as though, with great, treatment. Because as we see the 2 girls that he saved from that one village because they were treating them as monsters, he ends up destroying the whole village, and those 2 become his followers to an extent, basically. And as we see with Gojo to a different degree, as he becomes this mentor to the other students, we can see that sometimes he doesn't really, I guess in a way, kind of value certain cases of lives, because he would be willing to kill people if he needs to. Just for example, the Shibuya incident where I believe there's a good amount of people that got killed because Gojo had to do certain things, and he can't save everybody. And I think those type of things just make it a lot more compelling when it comes to these characters. And I do want to go more in depth about it in a future video and something like that. But yeah, I think that's gonna be enough for the video as I went along on tangent on these three characters. And yeah, there's a big gap between these three and the other ones, obviously. And I know that the manga knowledge does kind of affect it, but technically this was this season, so I would actually count that as part of it. But yeah, that's gonna be the list right here. You see, we'll just take off this list. We don't need the rest. But yeah, you have right here the top 15 to 11 and the honorable mentions, and then the rest right here. But yeah, if you did enjoy this video, be sure to let me know. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. We'll probably be putting out some more anime content. I'm gonna be trying to put some, other stuff, but there will probably take a little bit of a while. As you know, the scripts do take, a while, and I do want to bring out some quality over quantity. So yeah, I'll be catching you in the next one.